to Battlehosts. Be a better gamer, build a better community.
Welcome to Battlehosts, a podcast, a website dedicated to helping you become a better 40K gamer and to build a better community of players. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight is Sean.
Hello.
And Matt.
Whips and Change version 2. Here we go.
Version 2. If you like what you hear, subscribe to us on iTunes to catch all the latest episodes. You can follow us on Facebook under the Battlehosts. It was funny how I said, if you like what you hear, right after you said Whips and Chains.
Yeah.
I probably should have paused. This is part 2 of a Dark Eldar podcast.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not our brand.
Yeah. That's a little off brand for us.
It could be.
Okay, it could be. But yeah, this is part 2 of a Dark Eldar podcast. But if you'd like to support us for as little as $1 a month, you can visit us at patreon.com/thebattlehosts. And for $3 a month, you get access to our Discord chat. Now, this is the second part of a 2-part podcast on Drukhari or Dark Eldar.
There are no Whips and Chains on our Discord chat, right?
Yes, we do not have a special channel on Whips and Chains. Oh, we could create one. Not yet. Yeah, for sure. We're going to continue our discussion with Drukhari. The first part, we interviewed Brian from Splintermind. We talked about the history, the background, and then we kind of just covered the Kabals and the Covens and the cults and the basics, kind of the stuff that we typically go through in our first part. Mm-hmm. In this part, we actually have an interview with Skarri from Skaredcast. He's currently the number 1 Dark Eldar player, so we figured, we should talk to him a little bit, find out kind of what makes Dark Eldar so competitive, and also what he suggests and what are his favorite units and combos and such things like that. So we'll have an interview with him, and then we're going to come back and round out our discussion on the model range and how to get started and some of the other little stratagems and traits and relics that we kind of like with the army as well. So this is a 2-parter with a big chunk of it devoted to Skarri from Skaredcast. Whips and Chains, basically.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Now, before we get jump into Skarri's interview, let's hear a word from our sponsor, DGT.
We all love Warhammer 40K, but sometimes games just take too long. Using a game timer is the best way to make sure games finish and for both players to get an equal amount of time. Check out the Easy Game Timer from DGT, manufacturers and designers of the timers officially sanctioned by the International Chess Federation. It's simple to set up and customize, and your settings are saved when it's turned off. It's easy to use with a large moving lever for changing turns and a clear digital readout. It's the most affordable and high-quality game timer on the market and is the choice of most 40K events. Whether you want to practice before a big event or you just want to be a better player, the Easy Game Timer from DGT is the perfect game timer for your 40K events. The DGT Easy Game Timer is available from many online retailers. Wholesale pricing is also available for tournament organizers. Check these fine clocks out at dgtnorthamerica.com. Speed up your game and improve your play with the Easy Game Timer from DGT.
Now it's time for our interview with Skarri from Skaredcast. All right, so with me tonight is Skarri from Skaredcast. How are you doing, Skarri?
I am very well, thank you. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing great. Now, we are talking Drukhari, and we have you on because you are, first of all, you have Skaredcast is dedicated to it, but also you are the top ITC Dark Eldar player currently, correct?
Correct. Come get it, boys.
Come get it, yes.
And
of
girls,
course,
boys and girls. Could be anybody.
Yeah, and I messed up your tagline, so when I say Drukhari...
the dark kid.
Definitely.
That's it's funny because that started off as more of a joke than anything, and it kind of stuck.
Yeah, and now it's your thing. It's your tagline. Or as the Drukhari would, of course, call themselves the true kin because they're keeping it real. They are keeping it real. So
we're keeping it as faithful to us when before the fall happened.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep. Now, tell me about your experience with Drukhari. How long have you been playing Drukhari?
I started. So the first models I ever owned for Dark Eldar was with the 3rd edition 40K box set. Mm-hmm. So it was Black Templars and Dark Eldar. And then I really started playing with them, I want to say 2009 or so. And from there, started off, like couple of tanks, couple of infantry. But I used to play mostly an infantry-based list because, I was a poor student at the time. And,
sure.
And didn't really have a lot of expendable income. But eventually built it up to have, an army of what was called like Dark Light Spam, which was a lot of Raiders and Ravagers and Dark Lances. and lots of Dark Lances. And and then ended up doing quite well with them. Played that list almost exclusively until the new codex was released. I want to say 2014, 15, like the 5th edition or 4th edition codex, where they revamped everything, which was really fun.
Yeah. And so did you play the 5th edition 40K Dark Eldar when they had the Power from Pain with the tokens and all that?
Yeah, we used to call it the Pain Train because you had a little. You could gather these tokens, and each token gave you the power from pain, and you had to kill a unit in order to get a token. Essentially, it was very. And then I had little like trophies with little skulls on them, and they'd end up like a unit would end up having a little trophy following them around.
Nice.
That got more and more skulls as they killed more and more things, and they beefed themselves up to like a huge amount of power levels.
Yeah, and that was when the line was revamped at that point, and that's when you started to see them more, because they were kind of ignored for a long time. But then, that fifth ed, that was when the new plastics came out, and that's when the new designs came out, and that's when they felt like a real this is a legit army, and they were also really unique because they were different from a lot of. They're still different, but back then they were very different from a lot of different armies back then.
Yeah, they would they've always had like a very like unique style of play to them. But now, especially with like 8th edition and stuff, you and I'll touch on it a bit, but there's so many different ways to play the same army. It just keeps it fresh. I've been playing the same army for years, and I still find really cool little combos and really cool ways to play the game on the tabletop that keeps it entertaining and that stimulates me as I'm like it stimulates like my mind process as I kind of play the game.
This is this codex for this edition. We've long talked about it being one of the top codexes, not just because of the power of it, but because it's just so interesting and it has a lot of depth behind it. Like there's a lot there. And there's still stuff that we're kind of like, even as we're going through it, and we're looking at it through this podcast, and we're finding these relics. We're like, oh, that's right. There's this or there's that. There's a lot of little interesting things I don't think we've even quite explored all of it yet.
No, there's these even things that I would like to explore, and even I don't have enough time to like really test things out properly. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how the Dark Eldar play. And I actually should say that because the army, like you said, they play differently. What are the different styles of play? Like, what are the different kinds of lists that you can build using just the straight Dark Eldar Codex, no allies or any of that stuff?
So if you're a hobbyist at heart that just likes to play mainly games for, you get together with your friends and play pickup games, and you're not really a tournament goer, the Dark Eldar Codex provides you the ability to play any style of army that you'd like. Fast, slow, aggressive, passive, shenanigan-y, with lots of deep strike stuff, or like a hammer or a scalpel. You can with very tough troops or very not tough troops, or a horde of infantry if you want, or very elite, or multiple small units, or a combination of both. Depends on where you take from the Coven or the Cabal or the witch cults, and all of the other things all together. It is a very meaty codex. It has a little bit of everything, and that's what appeals the most to me, is really however you feel like playing the game, or if you have a specific play style, like you like one big unit that goes around to bully people, play a big army, like a big unit of grotesques. Don't like big, slow, lumbering, tough stuff, play witches. Do you want to shoot people off the board? Play a bunch of Cabal with Venoms and Razor Wings, And not only is it a really cool book in and of itself, but then it synergizes really well with the Harlequin Codex and the Eldar Codex, and you can fit in some Inari stuff if you want, like the characters and whatnot. And being able to take these elements from so many different places means that really it's up to your imagination and whatever you really would like to see happen on the game.
Yeah, and that's absolutely, that's a great point. Is that especially if you're just a casual player, or if you just want to go to an event and win more than you lose, you can really play the style that suits you or that you appreciate. If you like witches, or if you like Coven stuff, or if you like Kabalites or a mixture, you can take those things and still do well with them, regardless of what kind of a list you're trying to play. Yeah.
No, 100%. And on the flip side, if you're playing very competitively, normally we've seen the Drukhari played in, I want to say, 3 main ways. Okay. So the first main way, is there's a subsection to one of the ways, but so it's 3 main ways, except for one, which if you pick that one, it's either one of 2 styles, is what I want to say.
Yeah.
Right? So I'll start with that one. One is a Coven-centric force, which is the sort of like the army that I ended up playing a lot last tournament season, which was, Talos, Grotesques, Racks, and then a supporting element of Cabal, which is the Ravagers with disintegrated cannons. It's a very hard-hitting army. It's very flexible, tough to get points in, especially in the ITC format against it. And it has good shooting, decent, good close combat, and it's hard to dislodge. And that's the main one. So the Coven you see very, very frequently in competitive lists.
Yeah.
And you'll either see a high focus on Grotesques, which is a lot of big, tough Grotesques, or you'll see a high focus on Talos. And usually it's one or the other.
Yeah.
I ran a balance, but people usually like one style or the other.
I guess so the great thing about that style of list is it fits a lot with the list archetypes you see, like Guard, for example, with the Bulgrin unit. You have the big, meaty, kind of the hammer unit, the real tough, durable unit that holds the metal, and you've just got all the shooting. And the great thing about, Kabalite shooting is it's fast too. So it gets in position pretty well. So it has some speed, but it also has a lot of just vicious fire. I mean, disintegrators are just really great weapons.
Disintegrators are vicious. They are. They have, in my local meta, they wherever I go, and all the people I play, disintegrators have this terrifying connotation put to them, where they're it kind of makes people shudder, they're disintegrators.
Which
is kind of what you want as a true Archon. You want just the thought of having to face the Dark Eldar to be shiver down the opponent's spine.
Well, it's hey, what's the AP on that? -3. What?
-3. 2 damage, strength 5, so you can, it's so good.
It's good.
And those 3 Ravagers that are pretty much a standard in almost every competitive Drukhari list are the money.
Yeah.
If you're a Dark Eldar player and you're not playing 3 Ravagers, you are missing out.
Yep.
Because you just sit them around an Archon that has a reroll to hit aura and a reroll to wound aura. And they are probably one of the most efficient damage dealers in the Codex.
Yeah. And so it was easier when you could deep strike the disintegrators or the Ravagers in your deployment zone turn 1. Do you find that it's difficult to kind of keep them, because anyone who knows what a Ravager can do usually will target that if they can. How do you kind of keep them safe that first turn, especially if you're going second?
I put everything on the table.
Everything? Okay.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, in order to keep something safe, you kind of having a saturation is usually one of the best things that you can do.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, your opponent has to shoot something.
Yeah.
You might as well make it hard for them to really sort of pick the right target to shoot at.
Got it.
So I used to like deep striking stuff, especially against, things like Tau or whatnot. It was really, it could really be a hard one. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really faze me much. Ravagers and other Dark Eldar vehicles are surprisingly resilient.
Yeah.
For what they are. They have invulnerable saves, which really helps against a lot of, the main anti-tank weapons around. Just having a save can be huge. You have, a Feel No Pain if you made them
Cabal the
Blackheart, which, even if you get hit by a super cannon from the a Castellan or something, if a couple get through, that's 3d3 or 6d3 damage, and they might only do 12 damage or something. You have to roll a couple of 6s, all of a sudden, boom, Ravager's still alive, and that alone, it surprises people, especially when they try and split up their firepower amongst different targets, and then they end up not really killing much at all.
When you can give them, spend 2 CP and give them the -1 to hit. Do you often do that with the Ravagers when it's the first one that starts to get targeted, especially by big things?
And I usually don't use the -1 to hit until the opponent's halfway through their shooting phase.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Because it throws them off their math.
Yeah.
So, you can, a tank will usually soak up one thing of firepower, but what I usually do is I'll be like, okay, you're going to shoot it. Fine. That's no problem. They might split their fire first turn or whatever. That's okay. I'm not going to commit my defensive stratagem right off the bat. And then they'll shoot. They're probably not going to kill it if they split their fire, which is great. And then the second, they're going to have to pick one or the other to shoot at. That's when you use your defensive strat. And that extra -1 to hit will normally mean they don't kill it, and then they have to shoot something else at it to kill it, and that one Ravager is now soaked up 3 times what it was supposed to in the first place.
Got it. Yeah, because oftentimes what players will do, they'll try to bait you to use that. They'll want to use it. They'll fire something at it. They'll try to bait you to use that defensive strat, and then they'll throw everything else at the other one. So You're saying you wait a little bit, just give it a time. It because it has a 5-up invul. And it has the 6-up Feel No Pain or the 6-up save. It can withstand usually at least a volley of something.
Exactly.
Got it.
And that's the main. So that sort of Coven mix is one of the main formats you're going to see, and that's split into 2 different. The second way you're going to see the Dark Eldar, especially nowadays, is with a lot of MSU style. I feel that's having a bit of a comeback in a way.
Yeah.
I've been running anywhere from 8 to 12 Venoms, which has been really fun. They're super fast. They move everywhere. They shoot a lot, and they have a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
It's a very shooting centric, high board control, high speed, aggressive style Dark Eldar list that is not designed to take a lot of damage like the Coven do, but just overwhelm the enemy with, because everything's going to die. It's just you have so much stuff that the enemy can't physically kill everything.
Yeah, I mean, you lose a Venom, that's okay. I have 7 or 8 or 9 more of these things with the same loadouts.
Yes,
or 11.
Yes. And the third way to play Dark Eldar is more of a support role. So a lot of other armies will fit in, especially the Eldar flyer spam list that we're seeing. Or, the Harlequins or, Inari will normally use a detachment of Blackheart, specifically Blackheart. So either the Ravagers and Archon or the Razorwing jet fighters and maybe a Void Raven or a Flywing to get access to not only Vect, but Disintegrators and other good, weapons.
Yeah, because an Eldar Flyer Wing with Crimson Hunters or Hemlocks, they have a lot of they've got really great firepower. It's quality firepower. They're not going to want to waste on an Orc Boy. But Disintegrators, on the other hand, and a Razorwing jet fighter will just eat. It'll eat troops for lunch. I mean, because it just goes right through them, and you have a higher rate of firepower as well. That makes sense.
Exactly. So those are the 3 main ways that you see Drukhari, Dark Eldar in sort of the scene at the moment.
Yeah. Now, talk about Talos versus Grotesques. Why would you favor one or the other? I mean, I think I could see they're both being, I guess, Grotesque because they are infantry, right? They can actually go into buildings, especially with ITC, which typically has lots of buildings or ruins.
Yeah, so that is the main selling point for Grotesques.
Yeah.
They are infantry. They can go into magic boxes, right?
Yep.
That's the big, boogeyman for a lot of armies. The magic box, where you can hide your army inside a magic box. Can't get shot. Need to be infantry to go in and out of it. So it's very hard for people to dislodge you if they just have vehicles or knights or whatever. Yeah. So Grotesques have the ability to go in, get stuck in, kill things really quickly, and essentially get down and dirty, clearing out these ruins or whatnot. Talos, on the other hand, are a flying monstrous creature that are incredibly tough. They're very, very hard to kill. The key is that 7th wound, which means that, a Meltagun at short range even rolling a 6, you still don't kill it.
Yeah, I know. It's just so mean.
If you have 3 damage weapons, like straight 3 damage weapons, you need to do. It'll soak up 3 wounds from a 3 damage weapon. It'll soak up, 4 wounds from a 2 damage weapon.
Yep.
So killing them with multiple damage weapons is very inefficient.
Yeah.
Because they're soaking up, like they have an odd number of wounds, which makes that mechanic very interesting, like mathematically. Also give them a 3-up armor save, a 4+ invulnerable save that have Prophets of Flesh, which, if you're playing competitively, they are Prophets of Flesh.
Yep, they do. Yeah, they just are.
Right. They move 8 inches. They have a 6+ Feel No Pain. And on top of that, their weapon options make them one of the most versatile units in a Drukhari book.
Yeah. How do you typically run them out? How do you load them out?
So how I run them is probably one of the cheapest ways to run them. You run them with a chain flail, and you run them with the 2 haywire blasters. So they have the ability to have 5 attacks that are strength 7 or 8. If Uri and Rakoth is around them, they're 8. 2 damage minus 2 AP. Or they have 10 chain flail attacks.
Yeah.
10 attacks that on turn 3 are hitting on 2+.
Yeah.
They'll go into like 3 Talos with chain flails have 30 strength 7 attacks.
Yeah.
That re-roll wounds just because. And that weapon is cheaper than another scalpel.
Yeah.
So it's just so it makes them very versatile to take on like a knight with double damage weapons, or a horde with the chain flails, and then combine that with the haywire blasters, which are 2d3 shots each at 24 inches that can do mortal wounds to tanks, or a strength 4 -1 bolters against infantry. So they're very versatile at shooting. They can shoot infantry or they can shoot tanks.
Yeah.
And they can, it's an assault weapon, so they can move 8, advance D6, shoot the weapons, and fire and fade another 7. So they can move up the board like incredibly fast.
Yeah. And the fire and fade, the grotesques don't get that. I mean, they're not going to be quite as fast as Talos because they don't have a shooting. Well, I guess you could give them a shooting weapon, but that's so short range.
Well, you can give them the liquefy, but you're 8 inches away from the enemy. You're not going to fire and then fire and fade unless you're trying to like hide behind a wall or something. Which doesn't make sense for a grotesque.
Yeah. And I guess so those bully units, the grotesque or the Talos, whichever one. I mean, I'm guessing you played both. I mean, do you favor one, or do you just kind of like playing with either one of them?
I always use both.
Yeah. Oh, in the same list.
I feel that so I have 1 unit of grotesques in my competitive list, and it's usually 7 to 8. And that's I find the sweet spot for a unit of grotesques, and I run 2 units of 6 Talos.
Okay.
2 units of 3 Talos. That's 6 Talos in total. Yeah. And I find that amount has been the sweet spot for my 2,000 point competitive list.
Nice. That is a lot of stuff to shift in the middle of the board. I mean, that is a lot.
Very much so. Combine that with, anywhere from 15 to 25 racks that I normally run, plus the planes, plus the Ravagers. It is a tough, hard-hitting list, and if you don't have a way to get rid of invulnerable saves, it can be really hard to deal with that.
What are some of the hard counters to that list that you just described, which I think is you see a lot in a lot of competitive Dark Eldar lists where you have kind of the Covens center and then the Kabalite shooting. What are the things that the way it plays, you kind of move forward to the center of the board, but what are some ways you might be cautious about it or play around it, or you've got to think a little harder because there's some weaknesses. There's some lists that might be really strong against it.
Oh, 100%. I find one of the toughest matchups is Tau. The multiple broadside list or the Riptides with the broadsides, specifically broadsides, but their ability to really bully a bully unit to death in shooting. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many wounds or how many saves you have. When you have a a broadside unit, with all the Markalite support, so it's hitting on 3s, re-rolling all hits because of a Kauyon, that strength 7, so they're wounding you on 3s against the grotesques, re-rolling all wounds because of the stratagem to re-roll wounds, and all of a sudden you have no grotesque left. So Tau is usually a very, very tough matchup for that style of list, unless there are magic boxes.
Yeah, because then you can
hide all your Coven stuff.
Yeah.
And then if there's objectives nearby, you win that game just because Tau have a hard time getting through high toughness without line of sight. Yes, they have all smart missile systems, but your grotesques and racks are not going anywhere.
No. Yeah.
And so it's very hit or miss, and that makes it a tough matchup because there are so many variables that you need to take into account.
Yeah.
The multiple flyer list can be tough as well, just because the army is a little slower than normal.
Yeah.
And most of the shooting comes to the Ravagers. And something that Crimson Hunter Exarchs and Razorwings do really well is kill Ravagers.
Yeah.
So once your fire support is gone, it's a lot tougher to kind of get into a position to do damage.
Yeah.
And they can usually block off your movement avenues so that they just kill you before you even get to their fire base to try and kill them.
Yeah.
And the last one would be like the mirror match, because when a mirror match happens, it's a coin toss.
Yeah.
Coin toss.
Yeah.
Because, like one person can make all the saves, one person can't, or one person made the charge when the other person couldn't, and it comes to those flip of the coin things when the armies are very evenly matched.
Yeah. So talk about like the more the MSU style with, which is just a lot of venoms. I'm guessing you're taking Kabalites with, are you putting a blaster in each one of those, or are you just running them just straight Splinter?
I ran blasters for a couple of tournaments, and since then I have taken all the blasters off my Kabalite warriors because they are, in my opinion, a waste of points.
Yeah, you just miss half the time with them.
You either miss or you don't wound, or if you hit and wound, your opponent makes their save. Yeah. There's so many different stages where that can go wrong for a one-shot weapon.
Yeah.
They're a great weapon, but they suffer from that one-shot wonder weapon.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's heartbreaking. It really is, because you put all these points into blasters and they don't do anything. And I think that really hit home, because it was theoretical, but it really hit home at the CTC. The game I lost was against a knight player, and normally with blasters, like, knights aren't really a problem for me. Like, I can kill one at a time, but one at a time, that knight made every invulnerable save the entire game. And it was just one at a time. I didn't have volume. I just had one shot at a time. And on that one shot, he just passed a save every single time.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking, because I felt I could have just spent the points elsewhere. So since then, I've switched all my blasters on Kabalites for shredders. And I have been all the happier.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because even against tanks, they're strength 6. They do -1 AP, but you get D6 shots.
Oh, so got it.
I'm finding more often than not that even against armor, my shredders are on average doing more damage than blasters.
Okay.
For less than half the points.
Just because you got multiple shots.
Just because you have more shots. So you're more likely to get in 1, maybe 2 saves, maybe, right? And they're going to fail 1 or 2 armor saves. That's fine. That's 1 damage, right? Even a blaster is D6 damage. The times I've rolled 1 or 2 damage on a blaster is crazy. So, So I put the blasters on my Archons when I'm playing an ITC, because they hit on 2s.
Yeah, yeah.
And I put shredders on everybody else.
Got it. And so when you're talking venoms too, a bunch of venoms, do you have typically run anything else that has for that anti-tank, aside from shredders, but even that's only strength 6. I mean, are you putting in disintegrators or any other dark light or any of that kind of stuff around the list?
I do, yeah. So I've got the 3 triple disintegrator Ravagers, which are my main form of anti-tank.
Sure.
Those disintegrators will disintegrate everything.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Infantry, tanks, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I also have 2 disintegrator Razorwings in the list.
Okay.
So that gives me the missiles and the disintegrators for some, essentially adding another 2 Ravagers to the list that have more speed and are harder to kill. And then on top of that, I have Mandrakes in the list as well. And they're like uniquely anti-tank because their ability to do mortal wounds on a 6 to wound. So they wound on 5s normally against vehicles, but on 6s they do an additional mortal wound in addition to being -1 AP, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess Drukhari have mortal wounds, but they're kind of sprinkled throughout. Like the Torment Grenade is a strat you can use. But they don't have like a really nasty mortal wound engine thing. And I guess mandrakes they could fill that role. And, they're fine cast models, but they're super cool. They're still really neat models.
Yeah, well, I've got some metal ones. I have 15 in total, so sometimes I run 10 in one unit, sometimes run small units of 5, but I'm finding them to be, in the list that I've been playing with Venoms, I've been finding them to be an excellent sort of like strategically flexible unit that can do both shooting and combat, has an inherent deep strike, and they're just something that the enemy has to, they're hard to hit and things like that, and they kind of fill that gap between the Venoms and Kabalites in my list and the Witches that I also run in my list as well, because they kind of do both roles well.
Yeah, and so thinking of Witches, what are some ways that you find that you run them best? I mean, once you're in combat, they're really good and they're durable, but getting them there is always the trick. I mean, how are you finding the best way that you've found to run Witches?
Well, I've been running them in small 5-man units inside of Venoms.
Okay. Yeah,
So I have 2 succubuses to make a battalion, 3 units of 5 witches. The biggest use I use them for is the nets, of course. The nets are absolutely fantastic. However, they are even a 5-man unit of witches puts out an incredible amount of punishment to regular infantry units. They have 3 attacks each without combat drugs. I run them as Cursed Blade, which makes them strength 4 in combat. And they are a mop-up crew in my army. Because the way that the Venom multiple small unit army works is you put the army in multiple layers. You have to essentially, your army is going to die. That's life is cheap in the Dark City.
Yeah.
And so you put multiple layers for your enemy to get through. Could be Venoms first, then Kabalite Warriors, then more Venoms, but at the end of the road, there's these 3 units of witches that get pumped up by turn 3, and they're going in, hitting on 2s, strength 4, rerolling 1s to hit because of the succubus nearby, tying you up in combat. And they essentially are like a mop-up crew later in the game. So I'm not trying to move them up the board really quickly to get to you. I'm using them as a targeted scalpel to kill elements of your army that sort of have kind of crashed up against the walls of layers that I put up. Got it.
Yeah, and I think that's what Dark Eldar, I feel like in general, what they do best is they can bring a lot of firepower, but they can bring a lot of units, period. Dark Eldar are really good at trying to identify those weak points and just pouncing on it and just overwhelming like the weak areas of somebody's army. Because they're so fast, they can get to position to do the damage that they need to do once they can identify like, okay, here's a spot where I can do some damage.
Yeah, and you have to use the defeat in detail system, which is, you basically put as much of your army as possible against as small of a portion of the enemy army as possible to create a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Where as you lose units, that's fine, but your enemy has less and less to continue to deal with your units as they slowly kill your units. And even in ITC, I find that a lot as well. A lot of people will take Butcher's Bill against me, which is one of the best secondaries to take against me. But they'll get it for like 2 turns. Turn 2, they'll kill a bunch of stuff. Turn 3, they kill a bunch of stuff. But they're not just killing 2 units a turn. They're killing 6 units a turn or 5 units a turn. And then by the end of the game, they run out of steam. and it's hard for them to get those kills.
Yeah. And I guess it's like any, in general tactics with 40K is you're identifying the threats to your army to try to eliminate them. And when you have all those Venoms, even if you're losing half of them, you still have the other half that are still doing really the same job. So it's really hard to kill enough of a Drukhari list to really make a huge impact because there's just more coming, especially when you got that much.
Oh yes, and it's just so many units, and people look at it and go, you have so much stuff in your army. How do you fit this much stuff in 2,000 points? You're like, life is cheap. Everything's going to die. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's just the points in the game.
Yeah. And do you run splinter cannons on the Venoms?
So I run them with 1 splinter cannon.
Okay.
And I do not upgrade them.
Okay.
Ever since I've been using them as a multiple small units, I've been keeping them super cheap. They lose out on a couple of shots at long range, which is fine. However, they synergize really well with the shredders, which have to get within 12 inches anyway, which means, I'm not. And for every 6 splinter cannons I don't spend, I get another Venom, which is another 6 wounds, another unit that can move around 19 inches a turn with flayed skull. All that good stuff.
Yeah, so the range band is 12 inches, which feels dangerous, but like you said, okay, I move my venoms in. Yeah, they're within range of getting, assaulted or whatever, but it doesn't really matter because you've got more of them coming. And obviously you're not just throwing venoms away, but the splinter firepower is always just really tricky to me because there's a lot of it, but it feels bad to shoot it like, I don't know, guardsmen with a bunch of splinter weapons just because they're still wounding on 4s. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on splinter weapons, and what are the things that it does well, and what are the things where you're sort of, it is what it is. It's just kind of what the Drukhari have.
Splinter weapons are an interesting weapon because of the poison rule.
Yeah.
However, they are great because of math.
Yeah.
So no matter what it is that you're shooting at,
yeah.
you know you're hitting on this and you're wounding on this, right? So it kind of really helps you with the math against pretty much every target.
Oh, that's true. I guess it does make the math hammer in your head pretty easy because if you've sat down and kind of mapped out, here's how much wounds I can do, it doesn't really matter what the toughness is, it's always the same. So you actually can do kind of that on the fly, calculations
you're
in your head.
4, so mathematically speaking, you're going to do half of your hits are going to be wounds, right?
Yeah.
So, if you have 10 shots and you're hitting on 3s, you're hitting 8 times or whatever, rerolling 1s, right? So you hit like 7 or 8 times, you're wounding 4 times or 3 times or whatever. Yeah. And as long as you kind of keep that in mind and they've got such and such a save, you can really kind of do on average, I need like 6 venoms to do this job or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? And that really does help. I love poison because it just forces your opponent to take lots and lots and lots of armor saves.
Yeah.
And I find that combining that with Flayed Skull to prevent the enemy from taking cover saves is amazing.
Yeah, because you're taking away
it's
that.
like giving the poison a -1 AP almost.
Yeah, got it. And then, you have disintegrators at the -3 to kind of back up if you've got something that you don't have enough splinter weapons to take out. Something that's a little tougher.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like normally I'll be shooting the disintegrators at the guardsmen so that the disintegrators are killing guardsmen, like, on 3s and they just murder the guardsmen.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So I'll just make sure the guardsmen are dead. Like I don't want to give them a chance to live.
Yeah.
Especially if they're like mortar teams or anything like that. Like a Ravager or a Razorwing will just go in and nuke the infantry. Another reason why I like Mandrakes, because Mandrakes is strength 4 in shooting, which means that against like light infantry, Mandrakes with their -1 AP and strength 4 are a really good complementary strength to that poison. Because if you're shooting like Demon Princes or Morty or Magnus or any big tough units, poison's great, right? But when you're shooting anything that's like toughness 3, yes, sometimes it can be underwhelming.
Yeah.
However, that's where the Shredders come in because they're strength 6 and they reroll wounds against infantry, right? So, you have like built-in doom on every single unit, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And it just makes it very reliable in the course of a 6-turn game when dice are a factor.
How are you, like a knight list, especially maybe not a full knight list, but a 3-knight list, a 3-knight army that usually it has guard or has admech support or whatever, but how are you working around knights? Is it just volume of fire that you can usually bring down a knight a turn, or are you just playing around their objectives?
It is a very tough matchup to play. However, the Dark Eldar list, even with Shredders, has a surprising amount of anti-tank capability. The trick is to kill all the stuff that's supporting the knight first. So if they have the Loyal 32, the Rusty 15, or whatever, venoms that move 19 inches and can fire and fade, or can advance if you want to, can get into your opponent's backfield in a turn and a half. And if they've been too aggressive with the knights, you will kill and mop up their entire backfield and they won't be able to retaliate.
Yeah.
Another thing to remember is to use things like ruins. Get on the second floor of a ruin.
Yeah.
Knights can't go through most terrain. So instead of trying to like charge them or whatnot, or try and shoot them, just put a venom that's empty or a unit of Kabalite warriors that's empty, or like 5 Kabalite warriors or whatever, right in front of them so they can't move closer to you or move to where you don't want them to move.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just move blocking is very, very important. And last but not least, if you are going to shoot at the knight, focus everything you can on that one knight and pick one knight to kill and then shoot everything at it. And if you don't kill it, oh well. If you do, just focus everything you can. Because you have a Phantasm Grenade Launcher that can do mortal wounds.
Yep.
The Witches have Plasma Grenades, so you have the Haywire Grenade stratagem on there. You've got the Mortal Wounds from the Mandrakes. You got the Shredders, if you really, really are in a pinch, and the Poison, and the Disintegrator Cannons.
Yeah.
So all in all, you might not kill the knight but you might really mess it up.
Yeah, got it. And like you said, all the standard tactics that apply to knights is using the buildings to your favor, and also just move blocking is what Dark Eldar can do because they've got so much speed. Drukhari is just so fast.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if a new player is interested in Drukhari, what are some tips for learning how to play them effectively? Whether it's going to an event or even just playing, locally among friends. What are some things that you think a new player should know before they kind of pick up and start playing Drukhari?
So if you are a budding Archon, and you're really looking to start playing Drukhari, first thing I recommend is you go to my YouTube channel and you find the 9 lists Drukhari, like how to build Drukhari.
Got it.
And I go through 9 different army list styles. I got Coven, Witch Cult, and Cabal.
Nice.
And like that, you can find some inspiration because a lot of people don't really know where to start.
Sure.
So I put like a 500-point list up, a 1,000-point list, and a 1,500-point list. And depending on whether you want to be super competitive or collect, you can mix and match and do whatever you want. So that's a great place to start to give you a framework.
Yeah.
However, a couple of things you should know. Number one, if you want to pursue Dark Eldar at a competitive level, you need to have stick-ativity and grit. It is not an army for the faint of heart.
Are you talking just the building painting of it or the learning how to play?
No, the playing. Like playing it is not easy.
Yeah.
It is not an easy army to play with. Why? Because your whole army is going to die.
Yeah.
They're toughness 3. They don't really, they don't have an armor save that you can say, oh, yes, they have invul saves, but they're really squishy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you're writing yourself up to be disappointed if you're running them thinking they're going to be like super, super tough. Unless, of course, you're playing Coven, which is a completely different story.
Yeah. Yeah, but even Coven is, they're tough, but they're kind of slow. So they're a different sort of way to kind of play them. It's funny because you're right. There's fast and squishy, then there's tough and a little slower, but sometimes you have it mixed in the same same army.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Another thing you have to realize is from a hobbyist perspective, a Dark Eldar army is not an easy army to collect for a beginner because they have an incredible amount of detail. And if you want to paint them, it can be very overwhelming to feel like you want to paint, 30 Kabalite warriors and all these witches that have like grenades and pouches and eyes and skin and armor plates and pointy things and all these fiddly bits that break off because you don't have a proper carrying case for them, So it is definitely like a higher level of like hobby involved. It's not as easy as say grabbing some like very clean flat Space Marines and just like globbing them up with contrast paints, and having it all done and ready to go on the table.
Yeah.
However, you can make a very really cool looking Dark Eldar army because the models are fantastic with a minimal amount of effort. Don't try and make a too complicated scheme. Pick 3 or 4 colors and just replicate that throughout the entire range. So make all the lenses one color, all the blades another color, all the armor another color, and all the leather another color, and you should be okay. And just kind of like one unit at a time or one tank at a time.
Yeah, yeah. The Drukhari army is such a striking army, but it's so, like you said, it's fragile, but it's rewarding to see one, and they look great when, like you said, you have a nice uniform scheme, and you can let the shapes do the work for you. You just have to kind of paint kind of cleanly, and it'll look good. It'll look really good.
Exactly. And that's one of the nice things about the Dark Eldar army. It is a very rewarding army to play. Yeah. And because it does require not only skill to kind of put together and make it look good, but also skill to kind of play, I find it's very rewarding when you start using all these cool tactical nuances, and then you kind of sit back and go, I played like a Dark Eldar player, and like an Archon. I frustrated my opponent's plans,
Yeah, awesome. So, your YouTube channel, where can people find that?
You can find me on Skaredcast. That's Skaredcast on YouTube, and the links to everything else that I do are right on there. Usually do a battle report every week, and a couple of other videos as well. I got tactical series, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I try and entertain as much as I can.
Excellent. And you attend a lot of events, and of course you're going to ETC as well. You're going to ETC, but when's your next, aside from that, are you going to Nova, or are you going to SoCal, or what other events you're attending this year?
So I put a schedule up on the Patreon page of where I'm going. However, June, I have the Hooded Goblin that I'm going to. I've got the Sudbury major tournament that they have in Sudbury, which was my first major win last year. So it's been like a full year since then. I'm going to defend my title. Then I've got the TGX, which I might not be playing at, but I'll be streaming on Twitch because I have the Twitch stream every day.
Nice.
And then I'm going to potentially, no, not to ATC, but some other big RTTs, and then ETC, Capital City Bloodbath, potentially Attack X, which will be in Vancouver, and then another GT in December. In October, I've got the Michael Mudd Memorial Tournament, and then January it'll come full circle with another bout at the LVO.
And of course, you'll be taking Drukhari.
Yes, unless I take Inari. I've been really enjoying it. But my goal is to get best Drukhari, which last season, I missed out by like 10 points or 15 points because I flubbed it at the LVO. But I will be back and better than ever, ready to rock and roll. Yeah, and also, I mean, they could have probably done this change at the beginning of the season. However, the ITC changes to scoring for best in faction, I think, are fantastic, and I love it. It rewards the things that you play. I mean, you've played a pure Drukhari army for probably most of the ITC season, right? Or was it all of it? I mean, you're playing pure, and I like the fact that they're now that's how the points are being scored right now. I just feel that I was right the whole time. Nanner. You definitely were. And you know what? I think Inari are interesting. We got to talk about them because I think there's a lot of mixed opinions out there, and I'd love to hear your opinions on them eventually. Two words: Helion's Witches. Interesting. All right. Well, when we come back and we do a Inari episode, we'd love to have you back on. Absolutely. Thanks for the chat. This was great. And if you guys have any questions about Drukhari, reach out to me. I will help you. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, Skarri. You have a great night. Fantastic. Thanks a lot, guys. And Skarri out. All right. So that was Skarri from Skaredcast. Now let's take a break and listen to our other sponsor, TraderA.com. If you're like most Warhammer players, you own a ton of models. At one time, you had big plans for these models, but now they just kind of sit, gathering dust, unused and unloved. It's time to clean out your closet of shame. Visit TraderA.com and get cash for your used models. TraderA is run by Captain A, someone who's been in the community a long time and has done a lot to grow the hobby. He's also a personal friend of the show. Unopened boxes, models on a sprue, half-built models, primed, painted, even bits have value. The process is simple. Send him a list of what you have. He'll send you a quote. You pack it up, send in your stuff, and he'll get you cash. You can shop around, but you're going to find that TraderA gives you 40% more than the other guys. You want it quick? You want to get rid of it? Visit TraderA.com. Get cash to buy the stuff that you really want. TraderA.com. Sell your models and get your cash quick and easy. All right, so let's finish our discussion of the Drukhari. Now, there's a couple stratagems we didn't really chat about in our first part because we're focused on, the Cabal specific or the Covens specific ones. But really, the Drukhari have the same generic stratagems that Eldar have, which are really good ones. One is the Webway Portal / Screaming Jets. Now, the things with this is basically you can either deep strike vehicles or you can deep strike infantry models,
or beasts, or swarms, or bikes,
or in this case swarms. Yeah, so you could.
Can you do it with swarms?
I'm gonna say no, but that may make me a terrible.
Just beast?
Nope, no swarms. Infantry, biker, or beast. So if you're running a beast pack, which you shouldn't because the models are awful.
It doesn't have anything going for it, does it? I mean, it literally doesn't have any. I mean, if it had cool new models or new range, okay, but it doesn't. anyways.
Maybe at the start of 8th, there was some promise with
the Razor Wing.
The flock of seagulls.
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, that got fixed real quick.
Yep. So basically, you can either go infantry, biker, or beast as one, or the vehicles, which is
Screaming Jets.
Screaming Jets. Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Now in Eldar, it doesn't. I mean, it's you could do serpents, wave serpents, or planes. But in Drukhari, because they have so many transports, oftentimes Screaming Jets is kind of what you'll choose. It's very rare. You don't have infantry usually staying around on their own.
Yeah.
Necessarily. Usually, you'll have vehicles. Occasionally, you will, but. For the most part, yeah, it basically allows you to deep strike one or the other, and just like Eldar, and it's good.
And at the start of when the Codex first came out, Screaming Jets was silly powerful.
You saw it every game
because you could deep strike them at the start of your turn. I mean, you could deep strike them in your turn 1.
Yep.
So you would leave, most of your things off the board. I mean, exactly half. You'd leave exactly half your things off the board because it's 1 CP per vehicle.
Yep.
You could fill up a raider with, 2, sometimes 3 units, depending on what they were.
Yep.
And you just don't get to shoot at this yet, and it drops down.
And even when they tried to quote unquote fix it, when they said, well, you can drop things down. But only in your deployment zone. It still worked out great.
Yeah, because Ravagers are that's where I want to be.
That's I never put the Ravagers on the board when I played them. I dropped them in later because why would you just risk them getting shot?
Yep.
So, but either one of these is basically just to avoid getting kind of blown off the table. But you're losing them. The turn 1, you don't have them for turn 1.
Yeah.
There is also a really cool stratagem called the Alliance of Agony, and I actually really like this one because it allows you to choose a homunculus and up to 1 succubus from your army, and you can generate a trait for each one of those. So it kind of gives you that if you want to have 3 detachments of 1 is a Cabal, 1 is a Coven, and 1 is a Witch Cult, and you could have an Archon, a Homunculus, and a Succubus, all given Warlord traits. It's actually for 1 CP, they all get a trait. So I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, you don't have to have all of them. You can
just have one if you want. Yeah.
You can just have one of them. So an Archon has to be your Warlord, but then if you have a Succubus or a Homunculus, and as we read in the first part of Whips and Chains Part 1,
Whips and Chains,
there's some really really good Warlord traits that are Coven and Witch Cult specific. So you could double up. A Succubus that's 58, somewhere in the 58, 60 some points. With a 3-up invul.
Yeah, she can be a freaking blender too.
Yeah, they're fast too. They're super fast.
And plus, of course, they have the character keyword, so they can be sniped out, but essentially they're always protected by other crap that's around them. So,
and just a fun little note. If you give your homunculus, who's going to be Prophets of Flesh, you give him a Diabolical Soothsayer as his warlord trait. Gives you a single, reroll a single hit roll, wound roll, saving roll, throw, or damage roll for your warlord once per battle, which is pretty cool.
So it's a CP reroll, basically,
And then only for him, unfortunately. But the big thing is, you then roll a D3 before the battle and get that many command points.
So
you pay for the stratagem. You're like, I'm going to get this reroll, and I'm going to get something on this succubus over here, and also I'll just pay back.
And there's a good chance you're going to get one back anyways.
Yeah, you get one back no matter what, and then you might get extra.
Statistically, you'll net at least 1 command point from that whole thing.
Yep, for sure.
On top of the command point that you save from the reroll, the free reroll that you get, right? From Diabolical Soothsayer.
Yep. The next stratagem that is a really good one is, of course, lightning fast reactions. We know it. We love it. If you're an Eldari player, if your opponent hates these things, because for 2 CP, you can make a infantry vehicle or biker unit an additional -1 to hit. So this is where you can get up to -3 to hits for certain Eldari units, but in Drukhari, usually it's just -2. You get up to -2. So you basically take whatever unit it is that you really want to survive, and you can pop this on it and make them really, 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 really strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And 2 CP is steep, granted.
Are you saying minuses to hit are pretty strong?
Apparently they're a good thing. Yeah, and that's what Eldar, they need them, and they have them. So
somebody's been on the forums again,
Net listing. Lightning fast reactions is just one of those things. If you're playing Eldar, know that in any moment, if they have CP, if they have at least 2, they can make something -2 to hit. That's just it.
And if you think they're going to use it, you have to bait it out on a target that you don't actually want to kill, because you're not going to kill it.
Yep.
Unless you're like Ballistic Skull 2 with some really good rerolls, and then you're still putting a lot into it.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about playing against Drukhari is they usually, because they often have multiple Venoms of the same payload, or they have multiple Razor Wings that are basically the same.
Yeah,
it's like,
should have one they pop in, you're like, okay, I'll kill the other one.
Yeah, okay, well, I could kill the other one, which is just same exact thing as the one I was going to shoot at anyways.
Yep.
So yeah,
exactly.
Right. You're right. So lightning fast reaction, but that means also if you're a Drukhari player, you have to sort of, you got to be very careful a little bit about this, is that you don't want to get it baited out, or if the one you pop is the one you really, really need, you have a plan for, or there's a reason why you keep it alive. So, but yeah, you don't, minuses to hit, obviously a good thing. Fire and Fade is what lots of Eldari players used to use for their Dark Reapers, probably still do, although Dark Reapers are kind of expensive now on their own when they're only shooting once. But Fire and Fade...
Hashtag Eldar problems. My Dark Reapers can only shoot once.
They're not Ynnari anymore.
You can hear me sobbing over here for you. I mean, my heart bleeds. It really does.
You know, we need to... anyways, whole nother podcast about Ynnari. Yeah. But...
wait, what's a Ynnari now? It's going to... I don't know. Why would we make another one about Ynnari?
Wait, why is there a dead body in here? What's this corpse of? Oh, it's an army? Oh my goodness.
That's Ynnari.
Well, it is kind of like Dark Eldar now with Doom and Jinx, kind of like only Craft World. Dark Eldar like, we don't need your freaking Farseers anymore. Get away from us. We don't need you guys anymore. You offer nothing to us. I guess psychic support, but really, whatever. No, Dark Eldar Drukhari don't need Craft World anymore.
Not anymore.
Nope. But yeah, Fire and Fade. Basically, take a Drukhari unit from your army. If it shoots, it can immediately move up to 7. And in a army that has a crud ton of movement, an additional 7 inches of movement is very good.
Yeah, so, and you can use this with Talos.
Yeah.
They have assault weapons, so you can advance them up, shoot with the assault weapons, and then Fire and Fade.
Yeah.
And because you're not going to be charging anyway, so it just moves them up the board.
Yeah. And actually, you made a really good point, Matt, about Scourges. They can't use this when they deep strike down, which is because they used to be able to, and it's unfortunate.
Oh, it was great. It was great when you could drop them down and you could fire at something and then Fire and Fade them behind, a piece of line of sight blocking terrain. And they were actually, somewhat survivable.
Yep.
Can't do that anymore, unfortunately.
Yep.
Keep in mind, Fire and Fade just has a Drukhari unit, so you can Fire and Fade planes if you want. You can Fire and Fade a Tantalus. You can really Fire and Fade anything that shoots.
Yep.
It has to be able to shoot.
Yep.
So, sorry, Grotesques, unless you're really, really close to something and for some reason you took a flamer.
Yeah.
I don't know why I take a flamer. But yeah, it can be used on their vehicles.
Yep.
Fun fact, Rax can take a rifle on their sergeant. And
the Hex rifle or
and so I mean, probably not worth it, but shoot your one rifle out of your Rax and then Fire and Fade.
Sure. Yeah, there you go. If you want your 10 unit of 10 racks or whatever.
I think the rifle's like 2 points.
Well,
it gives you the ability to do it if you need a point feeler.
It's a sniper rifle, but I think racks are like ballistic skill 5.
Oh, you're not going to hit anything with it. It's just an ability to move your racks again, right?
It's
is the weapon assault?
Well, they also have the Asa factor, which is good. Oh, they have a ballistic skill 3 up.
That's not bad.
Yeah, the racks have the Asa factor, which is a poison weapon that it wounds on a 2+. And it does mortal wounds to a unit if it slays a model in it. That's not bad.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah.
That's the one where like the victim explodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a fun one.
Yeah, but it's also
the Hex rifle, that might be I don't know. It's a sniper rifle, and I think it's a little bit spendy for what it does.
Yeah, I carried us off into the weeds with racks with sniper rifles, but just
no.
You can get the Asa factor.
Oh no. Well, what's the range of the Asa factor?
24 inches.
That's not horrible. That's not bad because it's kind of where you want to be.
Racks have one job.
Yeah, they stand around and catch things that you don't want.
If the racks can only get to unit. We talked about this before, but they can only get up to 10, right? Mm-hmm. If they could get to 20,
you'd see them everywhere.
Oh man, that'd be ridiculous.
That's really what limits them in a lot of ways. Yeah,
I would not be okay.
No, would not be good.
You already see them everywhere. You would just see them more.
Yeah, the Hex rifle's 36 inches. It's a heavy weapon. Mm-hmm. Strength 4, -1, 1 damage. May target a character.
Yeah. It's a sniper. Yeah, it's only 5. Oh, it's only 5 points. Yeah. So it's not too bad. But
it's just a funny sniper rifle.
Yeah. So those sneaky racks, they can move that extra 7 inches.
Yeah. But I think that you talked about like Talos is really where it comes into play really, really well. There's a really, really annoying stratagem that our local Drukhari player plays a lot, and that is
Torment Grenade.
Torment Grenade. It's annoying, but it's also really good in that it sort of just kind of compounds itself. So Torment Grenade is...
I got it.
Okay,
Use this stratagem before a model from your army fires a Phantasm Grenade Launcher. If an enemy unit is hit by an attack made with this weapon this phase, then in addition to the usual effects, this is what I think makes it good. Roll 3d6. If the result is higher than the highest leadership characteristic in the enemy unit, it suffers D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So it's like a Hellfire round or a flak missile, but instead of replacing the regular fire of the weapon, you get this in addition. You just have to beat their leadership on 3d6, which is really, really easy.
Yeah.
It's really easy against
most and the Phantasm Grenade they're not that expensive. So most Archons have them.
Yeah.
And you can I think you can give them to Succubus as well.
You might be able to give them to the Sergeants.
The Sergeant, yeah, that's right.
You might be able to give them to the Sergeants. They're 3 points.
Yeah.
They're cheap.
So it's an additional D3 mortal wounds. It's nothing to sneeze at for 1 CP. Against some units is really, really brutal.
Yeah, and for me, playing with Leviathans, I have a -1 to hit. Yeah. Most of his army is hitting on 4s with blasters, and then they're wounding on 4s, and then I have a 4-up invuln. And then the Archon walks up and he goes, I hit you on 3s, I reroll 1s, and oh yeah, by the way, here's a D3 wound. I'm like,
just for the heck of it.
Come on, here's D3 more. I'm trying over here.
I do.
So yeah,
I do like how they've made the Archons they're really valuable. They could sit back and buff things also, but you can get them in there. You can do stuff with them.
They're valuable. They're efficient for their points. Compare them
because
to a Space Marine
cost.
Captain.
Yeah.
If you compare them to a Space Marine Captain with similar equipment.
Yeah,
they're pretty cheap. You can get them down to 68 points, I think, if you take them bare bones.
Yep.
If you give them a splinter pistol and a little venom blade, they're super cheap.
Yep.
They can be real good. One of the stratagems that is not often talked about, but I use it in kind of casual games to great effect, and I love it. The only reason we don't see it is because we don't see a lot of Witch Cult, is the eviscerating flyby. So if you had a large unit of Reaver jet bikes or a large unit of Hellions, you can fly over something, and it's basically like a bombing run. For every model that flies over that thing, and it's not limited by how many models are in the unit. See, because usually bombing runs they're capped. They're capped at either. So a Void Raven bomber, for example, you can. If you go over an enemy unit, let's say a unit of Plague Bearers, because we all have trouble killing Plague Bearers.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So you can roll up to 10 dice for that unit of Plague Bearers, and on a 4-up or 3-up for Void Raven, they take a mortal wound. That dice roll is limited by how many models are in the unit. So if there are only 6 Plague Bearers in there, you can only roll 6 dice.
Yeah.
Okay. This eviscerating flyby, it is not limited by that. So if you have 15 Hellions that fly over a unit of 5 scouts, you still get to roll 15 dice for 1 command point. And it's on 5s.
Yeah.
It's on 5s since it's an infantry unit, but it's still really good. It's still the same with a knight. It'd be on 6s at that point. But for 1 CP, it's not the worst thing. The only problem is that Hellions and Reaver jet bikes are really bad right now.
Well, they get killed easily.
They're made of quickly.
Hellions that's the problem with Hellions is they're awesome in that they're cheap and they have a lot of firepower, but I've never seen anyone run them because they just get shot off the board too quickly.
It's a bad spot to be in when you're like bolters.
Yeah,
those really hurt, right? Anytime your unit says that, you're like, you might be a little bit fragile.
Yeah. And then the reason other stuff is fine. Drukhari technically Drukhari for a long time has been called a glass cannon kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with their 5-up invuls and all their vehicles and their minuses to hit, they're a lot more durable than you think.
Yeah. Well, and then you got Meat Market that are like, we stand around and
and then the grotesque
abominations, but we don't die.
Yeah, they don't die either.
Yep.
So, any other shots that you find that you find are
well? There's this one called Release the Beasts, and I'm really excited to talk about the Beast Arm. Yeah, no. I think we got everyone that I could think of as being seen quite a bit.
There's also. I'm sorry. There's one more. The Haywire Grenade is one of those annoying ones too.
Yep.
Basically, you throw a plasma grenade, which I always forget they have plasma grenades.
Yep. Don't
there
forget
you go.
Your grenades, people.
If you throw it at a vehicle, you make a single hit roll, and if it hits, the enemy suffers D3 mortal wounds. Yep. So it's less like the Phantasm Grenade, but it's vehicle specific.
Mm-hmm.
So typically you'd use a Phantasm Grenade, but there you have it.
Well, and there's a lot of good synergy that you can have with that Haywire strat, because witches back in 6th and 7th were awesome because
the Haywire,
every single witch could take a Haywire grenade and they would just charge in and you could just all use a haywire grenade and the vehicles would just go bye-bye. They just didn't stand a chance. But since a witch, a hecatrix, so it's the sergeant for witches, they can take a phantasm grenade launcher. So you can use the phantasm grenade launcher and the torment grenade stratagem that we just talked about, and then another model in that unit gets to use that haywire grenade stratagem. So you're racking up D3 mortal wounds to vehicles, and death by 1,000 cuts, which is what the Dark Eldar do really well.
Yeah, that's funny. So you're basically, the torment grenade affects apparently the driver of the vehicle versus the haywire, which affects the circuitry, the inner workings of the vehicle. But either way, it's two D3 mortal wounds with both. I mean, it's CP heavy, but because Eldar are fairly cheap, well, not fairly cheap, they are cheap, you can get battalions really quickly. In most Dark Eldar armies or lists have
a good amount of command points in.
Yeah, usually you'll have 2 battalions and an air wing for the most part, because their flyers are so good. So now, as far as their relics, though, the ones we didn't talk about, I think the Jin Blade is really pretty good. It's basically an Archon with a husk blade. You can make the Archon actually kind of a beat stick in close combat, because he has a 2-up invuln. Granted, he always ends up failing the 2-up invuln for the first. He either fails the first one or he doesn't fail one for the rest of the game. Seems to be the way it works. But the Jin Blade is a strength +1, AP -3, D3 damage. Each time the bearer fights, it can make 2 additional attacks with the weapon to roll a D6 at the end of the fight phase in which the bearer attacked, and they suffer mortal wound. So, but it's the additional two additional attacks, and on an Archon, it's actually can be kind of a blender there. So strength 4 -3.
Yep. And one that I see used a good amount is the Helm of Spite on one of these Archons.
Yeah.
You can attempt, and it doesn't have to go on an Archon.
Yeah.
But I see it on the Archon quite a bit, because he's the one with like the Phantasm Grenade and the blaster that's going to be moving up, like near the venoms and stuff like that.
Yeah, because you take 2 Archons in an army. You've got the one that kind of sits back to re-rolls ones, and the other one is kind of the up there doing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the bearer can attempt to deny 1 psychic power in each enemy psychic phase in the same manner as a psyker. In addition, each time the bearer makes a successful deny the witch test, the psyker that attempted to manifest the power perils.
Oh, yeah.
So it's I get a deny in an army that doesn't have denies.
Yep.
That in of itself is pretty valuable.
Yep.
And then 2, if I do deny you, okay, let's watch your head explode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Pretty good. Especially against a lot of psychers, especially Imperial psychers and things. Well, any other psyker but an Eldar psyker who gets the 2 saves against it.
Exactly.
But the Warlocks and Spirit Seers don't. So, yeah, that's actually, it's only Farseers that don't really care about perils as much.
Yeah. And because so many of
Magnus.
those. Unless I'm rolling, because I still roll 1s on that 2-up feel no pain that comes from the peril.
As it goes.
It's a feel bad.
The other thing with the Archon, too, is there's a Warlord trait called Hatred Eternal, and you can reroll failed wound rolls. So if you give him, if you really want to make him, you give him a Jin Blade, you reroll failed wounds. He can get in there and do some work.
Yeah, I mean, they can be beat sticks. It depends on how saucy you are with your 2-up invul saves. Because as soon as that bad boy is gone, I'm sorry, partner.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a couple Primaris psychers that would be able to would 86 you pretty quickly.
Yep.
Because they are, without that 2-up invul, as soon as it goes away, it's pretty womp.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. For sure.
Okay. So the relic that I'd want to talk about is the whip.
The whip.
The whip. Yep. The tripartite. The whip. I can't say
the triptych whip.
The triptych whip. Okay. So it.
Yeah, it's succubus with an agonizer. The triptych whip. Replaces the bear's agonizer and has the following profile. It is strength dash and is AP -2 D1. Now, why is it strength dash?
It's not strength
poison.
dash. It's strength star.
Strength star, yeah.
Poison.
Yeah, but it's a poison weapon.
Of course, yeah. Duh. It's a poison weapon, but also you can make 3 additional attacks with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a poison weapon. It's wounding on, it's poison. And it's -2, 1 damage.
So here's where that one gets to be really, really good. So you have a succubus. We've already talked about how succubi are silly cheap.
Yep.
I mean, they are silly cheap. So a succubus base is 4 attacks. You can give them a combat drug to give them another.
5 attacks.
No, you'd want to give them the +1 weapon skill.
Yeah.
No,
they're already hitting on 2s.
They're already hitting on 2s. You'd want to give them the adrenalite combat drug, so they are 5 attacks base.
Yep.
And then
this it's 8 attacks because he's 3.
And then you're running the Colt.
Oh, hold on. So then you use the Warlord trait for the Cult of Strife. So every hit of a 6+ in the fight phase scores 3 hits instead of 1.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And the Cult of Strife, you get an extra attack on top of that. So you are 6 attacks base, 9 with the whip.
9. 6 is exploding.
And 6s explode. Keeping in mind the discussion we had in Whips and Chains Part 1 is that this book kind of came out before they started that whole trend of unmodified rolls of 6. This is a to hit roll of a 6+.
Oh, yeah.
And remember, turn 3, they get +1 to their hit.
Oh,
so
she's exploding on 5s.
So she's exploding on 5s and 6s. Mathematically, it is a outrageous number of hits there. And if I'm remembering Cult of Strife correctly, do they have the fight again?
I believe they do.
They have the fight again one. Is destroyed.
Cult of Strife.
Yep. So they'll get to fight again. So that, I mean, it's 3 CP.
Yep.
But that 56, 58 point character, whatever that succubus is, can easily kill like 2 units of 15 guardsmen, I would say. Like 2 units of 10 guardsmen, probably.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, she's in there and she's doing work, and if she's got witches to back her up, I mean, it's, and with Shardnets too, even if it doesn't kill something, unless that, you could morale them out, but if you go back into another unit, I mean, there's ways to protect.
Yeah.
Yep. So, for sure.
So that succubus, you see it here and there. It's hard to, better players use it because it's a hard model to keep alive.
Sure.
Yeah. But it can be just a meat grinder.
Yeah, I feel like, granted, now there's always the Archon build with rid of the Living Muse and sits back, but there's just a lot of little, and I think I saw it when I first looked at it, like Quicksilver Fighter, I think is a really cool Warlord trait, where basically you always fight first in the fight phase. With that whip, it's pretty good on a succubus. I mean, it's really quite tasty.
And if you're getting her into combat turn 2, you can also use Architects of Pain for 1 CP
to push
it up 1 higher and go, okay, I'm going to get her into combat this turn, so let's make it so that she hits on 2s and then explodes on 5s.
Yeah, that's nice. That's tasty.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean the math on that, if she has 9 attacks total, exploding on 5s.
So 3 explodes, meaning 9 extra hits, so plus 8, the 6 that she got.
So 15 hits.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yep.
So
one more relic that I forgot to bring up that I think is just hilarious is the Nightmare Doll. You put it on a homunculus, and then whenever they make a feel no pain test, it's on a 4 instead of a 6.
Yep. Oh, nice.
I watched a game where Josh, the local player that we've referred to a few times, I watched his homunculus get stomped on by a knight 2 rounds in a row. And just shake himself off.
I've got my doll. And also the one of the Coven Warlord traits, Master Artisan, you can re-roll the Inure to Suffering rolls of 1 for friendly models within 6 inches of the Warlord.
Yeah.
So it's even more durable, actually. So yeah. So there's a lot of depth to this codex, and it's actually going to be interesting now that you see just the way things have changed a little bit, and we're outside of the spring FAQ.
Oh yeah,
we have until the fall FAQ. We have kind of the summer, especially through Boise Cup and the stuff that's coming through. It'll be interesting to see if people kind of dig a little deeper into the Dark Eldar book now, the Drukhari book, because now with Craft World not being an obvious ally for them, there's a lot of cool stuff they could start doing with them.
Yeah, and the meta is rolling.
Yeah,
like it's every tournament. I feel like there's something new rolling out that people are going, ooh, that's new. Ooh, that's strong.
Yeah. Now, if you're excited about the Whips and Chains faction of the Drukhari and you're looking to get started with them, let's talk about the model range a little bit. Now, I actually purchased a Dark Eldar or Drukhari army. I purchased a Drukhari army, and the first thing there's it is a very fiddly army. There's a lot of like pointy stuff, and it's fragile.
If you don't have anxiety before, you will have anxiety after transporting your Dark Eldar army for the first time.
Yep. Yeah, because it's beautiful. the plastic sculpts were done, I think, at 5th edition. I think it's when they were updated.
Yep. That
Most
was a big
of them.
update.
And the great thing about the models are that they are updated enough to look really good, but they are not the current range of plastics, which are mostly monopose. You can still bit swap out arms, legs, and heads and torsos. And so you can really customize a lot of the, just at the infantry level, a lot of the units.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So they're great plastics, but they're not the newest monopose plastics.
Yeah, and there's gives and takes to that. The range of plastics that they all came out in with the Raiders, especially, and the Kabalite Warriors and the Witches, it was in the Golden Age when these kits were huge, and there's a ton of bits in them. And GW has since learned that, we need to not do this because all these riders that we put for the Raiders, those can easily make Kabalite Warriors. And then that is preventing people from buying our Kabalite Warrior box. There are things on the Raider that you never see built because it is impossible to transport. The Raiders, they come with like 2 or 3 people like hanging off the side, like in Mad Max, you never see Raiders built with that because you cannot transport that.
Snap off.
They will snap off if you look at it cross-eyed. All the chain snares, the chains that go out from under,
that hang.
You don't see those anymore because those things snap off. Even the blades. The blades are really tricky.
You talk about the underside of the hull.
The underside of the hull. Even the sails are better because those can be magnetized. All my sails are magnetized.
Easily.
Because
that's what I was going to say. Mag your sails.
Because
always.
Otherwise you will have a psychotic break if you try to keep if you glue your sails on and try to keep them intact while transporting. Very fiddly range, but very beautiful range.
And so much fun to paint. So many sharp edges.
There's a lot of clean.
On the Warriors, you get all the armor pieces that are these like clean, really great lines. I love the lines of their armor. And then you get like the decaying flesh hanging from their belt and that kind of stuff. Which, you can break up all that. And then you move out of that range and you start getting into like the Witches, where you're going to have a lot of flesh tone, but also like you can do some really cool combat paint markings and stuff like that on them. And then you get to like the Homunculus and
the Coven,
Coven, and that's like, okay, let's get disgusting.
Let's get gross with this.
Like different skin tones on different parts of bodies. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I found a YouTube video which really did save me, and it's basically how to magnetize a Raider to be a Ravager and back and forth. And it breaks it down to magnetizing all the way down to essentially the sails, the gun stuff on the side, all the weapons platforms. But step 1 was you don't put the chains on the bottom, you don't put the blades on the bottom, you don't put the riders on it, you keep it as clean as possible, and then you kind of magnetize everything that goes around it. I was actually walking with a tray, and I had a Ravager that had been magnetized, and I dropped the tray. The Ravager hit the ground, and it blew up part, but it was all magnetized, so it essentially was like, okay, all right, I was able to pull it back together again. But that moment when it just sort of flew in the air, I just think I saw my life, or hours of my work flash before my eyes, and I'm like, oh my God. Dark Eldar or Drukhari can be very fiddly, but super rewarding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's many models that still need a lot of love.
Oh yeah.
The resin models that they do have are from the first batch of resin, and they're
terrible,
awful. There's bubbles everywhere. Mandrakes, metal mandrakes and metal incubi are probably some of the hardest things to find on eBay because there is no other alternative. Even though the resins
nobody
are
wants
sold,
to sell them.
Nobody wants to get rid of those metal models. They're just so valuable. Same with the beast packs. All of those are resin or insanely expensive, and they're pretty bad. But the core stuff, the Venoms, the Raiders, the Ravagers, the Flyers, all the troop options.
They're all the new plastics.
They're all the new plastics. Talos are great. Talos is an awesome kit. Again, there's a ton of bits in Talos.
Yeah, there's a ton.
How many masks are there? There's like
7 or 8, and
each 3 Talos.
Yeah. Well, it's 1 Talos per box. There's at least 4 or 5 masks for 1 Talos. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Now the one unit that a lot of people are going to want to run that they can't really avoid are grotesques.
Yeah.
You really do need to find a way to convert grotesques.
Yes, because the only available grotesque is a mono pose one single model that each sells for like $30 or something like that.
Yeah. Even if it was a good plastic kit, it's not that. It's just too expensive.
No. Yeah. And it's an okay model. I mean, he's breakdancing. He looks like he's busting a move.
Yep.
It's kind of a silly thing. They need to make a plastic kit out of those.
I saw Young Frankenstein. He's got some dance moves, man.
Yeah, some moves.
Yeah. He even sung "Putting on the Ritz." Come on.
What are we talking about?
Young Frankenstein.
Oh, Young Frankenstein. Oh, got it.
Yeah. That one might be a bit dated.
Wow. Yes, I got it now. I love that movie.
That movie is in black and white after all.
It's
a little bit of an old one.
Yep. Well, we're reaching way back for that one.
Well, it was purposely. It doesn't matter. Anyways.
Did I see you wag your finger and straighten your glasses? It was purposeful.
It was purposely black and white. Now, I actually purchased the grotesque that I have, and Matt, what was it? Was it the Rat Ogre or the?
I'm not sure what yours are. I haven't seen yours in a while. I suspect that they are Skaven Rat Ogres like mine are. Yeah. Because I have 20 grotesques that I have converted. Yeah. 20. That was interesting. Yeah. That was an interesting experience. But Skaven Rat Ogres make great ones
because of the body itself.
Because the body, and it fits on the base size perfectly. Yep.
Yours are the bat creatures out of the vampire counts.
They're the crypt horrors.
The crypt horrors,
the crypt horrors. That's another really popular one.
Yeah. Because all you need is just a beefy body that fits that base size, and then the aforementioned Talos kit has all the stuff masks and stuff,
the needles and all that kind of stuff.
The vials and the Chronos, the Chronos tentacles and things like that.
Yep.
It has all you really need. So if there's probably 4 or 5 other really common conversions for grotesques.
One that I really liked was Josh did one with Wraith Blades. And he kind of made it like, because they're constructs, they're converted, or they're corrupted constructs, and that actually has some basis in lore.
In the lore, yeah.
Vect has a corrupted Wraithguard in his retinue.
Yeah.
He has 2 of them.
Yeah, 2 of them. And so, and the way that he posed them, like he swapped out some of their pieces for the tentacles and stuff, but they're kind of posed like the, creepy broken dolls animated by the dead.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of, look like they got dragging, arms and legs and stuff, and they're a little bit like, ramshackle, but you can tell they would kind of like walk towards you clattering as their pieces hit each other. Like, looks really good.
Yeah. And so grotesques are where kind of you're going to want them, and you're going to want to convert them. Like you said, there's like 4 or 5 different common ways. And so you can get really creative with them.
Unless they come out with, different models for them, which we're not saying too loud because we want Vect before we want anything.
Well,
we want Vect. We want more HQs because the HQ options are
they're limited.
I don't know if I want Vect so much, but I would love to have more HQ options. I would like to have
he would be the best HQ. That is a problem, is that the 5th edition Dark Eldar book had
it had Duke it had Lady Malice, it had the
Duke Slith.
What's the guy that rode the Hellion board?
That's the Baron.
The Baron had the Baron, who was super cool.
Yeah. The problem was that GW had models for none of those.
Yep.
And so it emboldened third-party companies to make models for them or people to convert them, and that is not good business strategy.
Yep.
So
what I'd like with Vect is for them to follow what they've done with the Greater Demons, where they release like here's a Greater Demon, and then here's the version of it that's the name character.
Yeah.
I'd love for them to release like a generic Archon in a pleasure barge.
Yeah.
Like kit.
Like a larger raidery thing.
Yeah, right. And then just make it so like any Archon that got successful enough could ride into battle with his pleasure barge, and then make a special one for Vect. That'd be an interesting way to add more options.
Well, and it's, in the conversation with Brian in the last podcast, there's a lot of directions they could do with Dark Eldar. I mean, Mandrakes kind of exist in a weird shadow dimension. There's so many things they could look at, even within Gamora, of all the different facets of Dark Eldar society. They've stripped things down. There's a lot of areas they could expand.
Well, and there's in the lore, there's Talos the size of Imperial Knights.
Yeah.
I mean, they could easily make a Lord of War Talos if they wanted to. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of directions they could go. Forge World at one point, and there's a picture of this, so it's confirmed. They had 2 other versions of the Tantalus.
Yeah.
And only one of them went into production. And so there's 2 other CAD files.
Larger.
for different pleasure barges sitting in a computer somewhere in Nottingham. Yeah. So they could go a lot of different directions with it. But the mandrakes and the incubi need plastic kits so badly.
They do.
So bad.
And the incubi is such a cool. I mean, even they're a good kit still, but they're not plastic.
Yeah.
So they're hard to work with.
I mean, they're all mono. They're all like mono or dual pose. You get to put sword up and it breaks up, or you get to put sword down and it's hey, I'm going to transport.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they're just the old pewter kits in the resin. So they're outdated in some ways. They're gorgeous models. I love the look of incubi.
Yep.
I wish they were good.
Yeah, I do too.
Like Lilith Hellsparax, the named witch.
Yep.
She's pewter or resin.
Yeah, she falls apart.
Yeah, and
Drazar,
he's
borderline second edition Phoenix Lord.
Bad.
Ugly.
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's really bad
because he's a fallen Phoenix Lord.
Yeah,
He's a striking scorpion.
I think that's the rumor.
He's so cool, but he's so bad.
So there's the Craft World Eldar have a ton of these, like, they need to update this, they need to update that, including an entire Aspect Warrior range. Dark Eldar only have little bits and bobs, little pockets, but they also have room to expand. There's lots of characters that have tons of lore and background that they could reintroduce, and really they wouldn't have to do a lot of work to it.
And 90% of what you're going to have in your army, you're going to be able to build straight out of the box, paint it, and it's going to look great.
Yep. Yeah. So let's talk about getting started with Dark Eldar.
Yeah.
Now, they pretty much... I guess I just would have. You could go with Kabalites. I think usually Kabalites are probably the simplest way to get started.
Yeah.
You could go the sort of the Coven route, but honestly, you could go Venoms or Raiders or both. Dark Eldar just require a ton. Like there's a lot to the army.
You're going to be getting a lot of medium quality units.
Yeah, because the cost points wise in the game is kind of cheap.
Mm-hmm.
A Venom doesn't cost very much in the game, but it's a single plastic kit.
It's still a $30.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's around there, probably upper 30s, low 40s. They do have quite a few get started kits for Dark Eldar,
and they all come with stuff that you need.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Archon, Raiders, or a Raider and Warriors.
Yeah,
is what a lot of them include.
Yep.
The Kabalite one is probably one of the better ones because the Witches one comes with jet bikes, Reaver jet bikes,
which are
are questionable, but they all come with like a Raider or a couple of Venoms. There's some really good get started boxes out there.
Yeah,
Ravagers are always a good place to start. The Razor Wings one or two Razor Wings would be a great place to start.
Yeah, 2 Razor Wings to put into a battalion or whatever, but 3 to give yourself an Air Wing, or 2 plus a Void Raven, however you want to kind of work it.
You'll probably get there eventually.
Yeah.
3 flyers.
Yeah, we will eventually get there.
You'll get there to 3 flyers.
Yep, for sure.
It's the 3 main HQs are all plastic kits, are great.
Mm-hmm.
There's also great conversions that you can make into Archons.
Yes.
With I don't know, because nobody uses the Vizarch from the Ynnari, the Nari Triumvirate.
Yeah.
The Vizarch makes an awesome Archon.
Oh yeah, he looks great.
He's super cool.
He's super roided. He looks like a super roided out Archon next to the rest of them, but really good. But Venoms and Troops.
Yep. Yeah, Venoms / Raiders and Troops. Yeah, but Venoms and Troops really. And the Start Collecting box. There have been multiple ones, like you said, and if you can find them, like right now, the Start Collecting box is the Witch Cult version, but they had a Kabalite one that was a little better.
There's no Kabalite ones on the GW site?
Not currently, no. It's
interesting.
the Witch Cult one, which is not quite as good because it's a single Venom, 3 bikes, and then a bunch of witches, so you can't really double up on it.
Yeah.
But however you can find a way to get Venoms cheap, you're probably going to want at least, you're going to want some Venoms and Troops.
Yep, really.
So,
and build your warriors with blasters. Just put blasters on your warriors.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, because every box of 10 should have because it has a single blaster, right?
Has a blaster, has a dark lance, and it might have a shredder too.
Yeah, but definitely keep the blasters. Make a blaster for every single one if you can.
Blasters are very, very, they're very valuable.
Don't ever throw away your Drukhari bits ever.
No.
Ever. Ever, because it feels like every edition, one of their special weapons gets to kind of rises to the top.
Oh, yep, and everything gets popped off,
and they just get taken.
Well, and that I think that kind of goes for almost every army. I mean,
for sure.
Like back in 7th, like everybody asked, like, missile launcher. What are you doing with a missile launcher in your Space Marine army? And now missile launchers aren't the worst.
Yeah, you're gonna have one for flak missile if you're taking heavy weapons. So.
Yeah. So I guess saving bits is good for everything, but especially for your Drukhari, because the plastics are such a point where you can do lots of cool conversions with them.
Oh yeah.
But also just. Yeah, their special weapons definitely go up and down in value.
Yeah, and I definitely felt like I saw a lot more posts of like, hey, does anybody have this, Dark Eldar special weapon on forums and Facebook posts, like when 8th dropped?
It's like fusion pistols for Harlequins. You can't.
No, you don't get rid of a fusion pistol.
Never get rid of it. Neurodisruptors? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Hey, I can snap the tip off that neurodisruptor and maybe put a melt-a-gun tip from another bit on there to make it another fusion pistol. There we go.
Yep.
One thing I will say about getting started with Dark Eldar is it is a finesse army.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I credit Dark Eldar with getting me into 40K the hard way.
Yep.
Because I got into Dark Eldar when they were really bad.
Yeah.
And they were really, really bad. And it teaches you how to move smartly and think ahead.
Yep.
And when to sacrifice troops and when to when to hold it back, when to be reactive and when to be aggressive.
Yep.
It is not the easiest army in the world to play.
No.
So just be patient. I mean, the model range is awesome. The play style is awesome. It's a very unique play style, but it's very unforgiving.
Yep.
It has a very low floor.
Yeah, and it's even though you can run lots of Venoms, right? You can run 9 Venoms or something like that, and that's not unheard of in a lot of
9. You got to boost those rookie numbers up.
Those are rookie numbers. You can run something like that, for example, but they're not. You will find yourself. It is death by 1,000 cuts, but they're not throwaway. Like you can sacrifice things occasionally to slow things down, but it's kind of like.
If you treat your whole army like it's like it's worthless, then you're not going to win.
And it's almost like you have to be very good about putting a lot of pressure on a single point on the board. Like, where's the weak spot? Go after the weak spots and go from there. So it's fun. It's got a lot of maneuverability. It's got a lot of firepower. It's a super fun army. It will take a while to get started with it though. But I think you're right, Matt. It does reward. You have to be precise. And you have to know kind of where you want to go with things, and it will actually make you a better player because you have to know the ranges of things, and you can't be too sloppy with them. Unless you're running Coven, then you can just push units forward.
I'm
kidding.
Board push
if you want, and because Venoms are surprisingly durable.
Yep.
Neg 1 to hit, 5 up invul, usually a 6 up feel no pain.
Yep.
And it takes somebody quite a while to kill enough firepower to kill a Venom, and the unit of 5 troops inside of the blaster.
Yep.
Like, I killed that thing. Like, congratulations, that was 110 points.
Yep.
And it's 115 points. I have literally 9 others.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. All right. So that is really all we have for the Dark Eldar, or the Drukhari. I keep bouncing back and forth. It's a bad habit. It's just, and I actually think the name Drukhari is a decent name as far as non-IP, IP protecting different names now as go. So thank you so much for listening to our show. We love to hear from our listeners. So please feel free to message us on Facebook or email us at thebattlehosts@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us, you can help us in a few different ways. You can tell your friends about us and like us on Facebook. You can leave a review on iTunes, which does help to boost our listening audience. Finally, you can support us on our Patreon at patreon.com/thebattlehosts. For as little as $1 a month, you can help us with the cost of running the show and staying engaged with the 40K community. So thank you for listening to the Battle Hosts.
Remember to get your power from pain.
Yep.
And build a spiky community.
Nice. Good night. And it's weird because it happens in the future. It happen right now. 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 Happen right now.